this is Mrs. K. You're watching Mrs. K's Healthy Eating Channel, and we're here to help you to eat well and get cooking.
Right, last time we looked at plant-based calcium foods. This week we're going to look at plant-based iron foods. So iron is really important for our bodies, and there are two sources of iron. We have something called heme iron, and we have non-heme iron. And for those who are not vegetarians or vegans, they would have a mixture of iron which comes from this source, which is an animal source. And what we mean with animal source is red meat, liver, any sort of meat contains high iron sources. But we all eat a mixture of heme and non-heme if we're not vegetarian or vegan. But obviously those who are vegetarian and vegan would tend to eat non-heme iron, which is from plants. So today we're going to look at the whole issue of how much iron do we actually need. Like we did with the calcium. Calcium, we need 800 milligrams. Well, you're going to be very shocked when you hear what we need for iron. Iron is a totally different thing. We need far less iron than we do calcium. If you remember 800, well, let me show you. For males or men and women over 50, we only need 9 milligrams. For all women, females, between the age of 11 and 50, they need double, at least 15 grams, right? It's not really good to go over 20 grams. Over 20 grams of iron can cause harm. And little children need far less than this, half of these values. So 9 milligrams for males and females over 50, 15 for women between 11 and 50. And for young children, for very young children, it's as little as 1.5 to about 6 milligrams of iron they need a day. And yet, despite so little being needed, it is so vital to the body. Now, why do we need iron? What do we need it for? Iron is involved in making red blood cells which carry oxygen around the body. Now, if you think about it, you need to know what oxygen does when it travels around the body. We breathe it in, but it actually travels all around our bodies. And the reason it does that is because it's got to reach our glucose stores. So we've got like cupboards in our body, and those cupboards are in the muscles and the liver. So those are the store cupboards that hold our stores of glucose, which is our energy. Now that energy is going to stay in your muscles or in your liver, in the store cupboards, until oxygen goes along and goes into the cupboard, and it kind of, in the muscles, it's not stored as glucose. It's stored as something called glycogen. And that glycogen, when the oxygen comes along into your muscle, it changes it back into glucose. And that glucose then goes out of the cupboard into your blood and gets used for energy for whatever you're doing. And if you're an athlete and you're running, you're going to be breathing quicker because you've got to get that oxygen around quickly so that the glycogen in your muscles can be unleashed and straight into your blood and used. So it's quite an amazing system. So you eat your carbohydrates, gets turned into glucose, glucose runs around your body, goes into their cupboards and gets stored as glycogen. Then the oxygen comes in your red blood cells that your iron is responsible for making, unlocks it, and so the whole process works together. So iron, if you don't have enough, what happens? Well, you become pale, you have no energy, you're lethargic, and you find it difficult to concentrate. So if you are not getting enough iron, it has a huge impact on your life, on your daily life, because you just don't have the energy to do what you're meant to be doing, because there is no oxygen, there's not enough red blood cells running around to your cupboards to unleash the energy. Even if you eat the carbohydrates, you can't make it be used. It's not used unless you've got enough of your iron. So, as I said, it all works in tandem. Now, this is the problem with iron. It can cause something which I'm sure you all know is anemia. And that is what anemia is when you don't have enough iron, you haven't got the energy and you're pale. It can actually make you feel quite sick. So really not a nice state to be in. And one of the first things that gets checked when you go to the doctor, if you're feeling lethargic, you're feeling run down, is they check your iron levels. And especially for women. As you know, between the ages of 11 and 50, they have the menstrual cycle, and that causes loss of blood, and that has a huge impact on their diets, and that's why they have to eat double the amount. Okay, so now we know how much we have to eat, and we are now going to look at where we get most of our iron from when we're eating a plant-based diet. So we're only going to look at, we're not looking at heme iron, and the only thing I'm going to say about heme iron is that iron from animal products is absorbed very easily by the body. It's absorbed quickly. The problem with non-heme iron is that it is not easily absorbed by the body. So we have some problems with absorption. It is generally recognized that vegan diets are actually very high in iron. Because they eat such a variety of vegetables and lentils and beans. So there's not a problem with that. The only problem comes with the absorption. And there is a way around this. There is a way to increase the absorption, which I'm going to tell you about in a sec. But what I wanted to do was to go through how much iron there is. I'm not going to measure it as directly as I did last time. I've put the food groups into 3 groups. High levels of iron, medium levels of iron, and low levels of iron. So let's start with low. Low levels of iron, and this is where you're getting less than 1 milligram. Okay? Now, you only have to eat, well, you have to eat 9 if you're a male, 15 if you're a female, okay? So, you will need 15 is quite a lot of iron to eat, actually. And when you're looking at eating foods that are low in iron, you need to make sure you either eat a lot of them or you use them as supplements to supplement the high iron. Okay, so low iron. These are the things that I've got here that are low in iron. Now, apricots, as we saw last time, are wonderful dried fruits. They are high in calcium, but they also have iron. For it to be high in iron, you'd have to eat about 20 apricots. But you're not going to eat 20 apricots at a time. You're probably going to eat 4 or 5. And you would have below 1 milligram of iron if you snacked on 5 apricots, for instance. Your vegetables. Now, pak choi. Now, I must apologize. Last week I was calling it pak choy, which is an incorrect pronunciation. I saw the spelling, C-H-O-I. Because I speak French, the minute I see O-I, I go choix. So, forgive me for that. But Chinese cabbage or pak choy. Okay, so this broccoli, which of course we know is high in so many things, and there is iron in broccoli, but it is just below, a portion would be just below 1 milligram of iron. And then we've got the spinach controversy. Now, I'm afraid I can't give you a definitive answer. There are so many sites that disagree. Spinach is high in iron, there's no doubt about it. It has lots of iron in it, but the problem is the absorption. Now, as I said last week with the calcium, spinach is high in oxalates, and oxalates is something which inhibits the absorption. So the jury is out. If you could absorb the iron in spinach, it would be a medium source of iron. But because there is so much evidence out there that says that the absorption of spinach is almost negligible, and some of the research I've found said, if you're looking at spinach for iron, don't bother. Spinach has got other wonderful things in it, but don't go to spinach for the iron. Okay, so that is a bit of a shock to some. However, spinach is still a wonderful vegetable and contains lots of good nutrients. Now, that's the low section. Okay, now, medium. What is medium? Now, I've put those as between 1 milligram and 3 milligrams of iron. So let's have a look at some of the things that are medium. Okay, so we've got kidney beans, baked beans, really quite a good, I've got all the figures here, quite a good source of iron. Baked beans 1.9 for a portion, and kidney beans 1.8, so just a medium amount. Lentils, out of this group, these red lentils are the highest. They were almost high. They're on the verge between high and medium. So lentils are a really good source, as you know, of so many things, not just iron. Okay, so a great food. Prunes. Prunes are medium, not far over 1, sort of 1.2 for a handful of prunes, but also a good snack to be snacking at it during the day. And our good old sesame seeds. Now, the sesame seed, I've used up my sesame seeds to make some more tahini paste today, because we're going to be making a tahini sauce for our practical today. But sesame seeds, again, amazing for calcium and for iron, so a medium level in seed. But the best vegetable of all is this, curly kale. Curly kale is on the verge between medium and high. So this is the vegetable. Now the big difference, you might ask, is what's the difference between spinach and curly kale? This one is high in oxalates. This one is very low in oxalates. So it's the oxalates that is the problem that stops the absorption. So this one is far better, and we're actually going to be using this in our practical work today. Okay, so those are some of the examples of a medium between 1 and 3 milligrams. Again, if you're needing 15 milligrams, these are won't be enough unless you eat a very large quantity of them. So let's move medium to one side. Okay, now let's look at high. Now, I've read the research done by the FSA, the Food Standards Agency in Britain, and according to them, 75% of good iron sources come from fortified foods, especially breakfast cereals. And breakfast cereals, if you look on the packaging, will actually tell you on the back, it will tell you how much iron there is in it. And the iron source in a little small bowl is 2 milligrams of iron, just in a 40-gram bowl of bran flakes, which really isn't a lot at all. I know with my children they would eat 3-4 times that amount. But so there is iron fortified in all breakfast cereals, and there's a very good reason for that. And that is because people are not getting enough iron. Anemia is very common. And so they have, and you are, as anyone eating, looking for iron stores, are recommended to look for fortified iron foods. Okay, so I've chosen bran flakes because we eat bran flakes, but you will find in all the children's cereals, look on the back, have a look, make sure that there is iron that has been put into the breakfast cereals. Okay, so that's a really good source. In fact, on my research, this is probably the highest source of iron, and in fact, yes, the FSA has really recommended this and really pointed these out. Now, another thing that's high in iron, of course, is molasses. It's not something we use a lot of. If you make a Christmas cake, you might use molasses. But actually, this is high in iron. So if you can use it in any of your baked products, it is from sugarcane, but it is really raw, unrefined, and has it's not a sweet taste, so not to everyone's taste, but is lovely for the colour, of course, in baked goods. Now, another one that is all brown wholemeal flour, brown rice, wholemeal pasta. These are good sources of iron. Okay, these are considered high sources of iron. So anything over 3 milligrams. Okay, so these sources are the ones that you need to be using. Baking, as I've said before, try and bake with wholemeal flour wherever possible. Use it instead of white flour. White flour is fortified with calcium, but not with iron. Okay, you're going to be using lots of pasta anyway, so pasta is a good source of iron. Now, another high source is tofu. Tofu, high in iron. Okay, cheese, of course, wouldn't be, but for a vegan-based diet, tofu is a brilliant source of iron. And another amazing source is dried figs. Dried figs are high in iron, much higher than the apricots or the prunes or any other dried fruit. So if you're eating, if you're following a vegan-based diet and you need to increase that iron, chop them up into your salads and chop them up and put them in your breakfast. You could have some bran flakes or whatever breakfast you're having and add some dried figs. They're not to everyone's taste because they've got quite a lot of seeds inside, but just try and chop them up, even blitz them. Blend them into more of a paste and then add that into, you could add that into yogurt as well. If you're having a soya-based yogurt, you could add that in there as well. Okay, and then the other thing that is high in iron is tahini paste. Now I have, as I did last week, I've made my own tahini paste from sesame seeds because we're going to be making a tahini dressing. And as I've said before, tahini dressing is used instead of a salad dressing, instead of a mayonnaise, because you're adding calcium and iron. So this is an amazing food, is your sesame seeds, certainly, and it's very concentrated in a tahini paste. Okay, so there we go. That's looking at our high sources of iron. But what about the issue of absorption? I said at the beginning that plant-based iron is difficult to absorb, and it is. And the way we get around that is by finding the partner for iron. And there is something. Does anybody know what that partner for iron is? For calcium, remember, the partner was vitamin D, sunshine. This partner is vitamin C. Now, vitamin C actually increases the absorption of plant-based iron by as much as 4 times. On an American site, I saw they said by 5 times, but the British sites say 3 to 4 times. And that comes from the FSA, okay, Food Standards Agency. Right, now, so what do? How do we increase our vitamin C with iron? For example, we're very lucky with curly kale because it contains vitamin C and iron. So you've got them both in here. But if you were making a lunch snack, you could add things like peppers. And I've got some little, you could buy little snack peppers. Have some little snack peppers along with your lunch. Pop them in your salad. We're going to be making some fajita wraps with tofu today, and we're going to put some peppers into the stir fry. Parsley as well. You could add parsley into a sandwich, for example, coriander. Now, for breakfast, what about having some bran flakes with a glass of orange juice? So, instead of a cup of tea. Now, tea is another problem. The tannin in tea can actually stop the absorption of iron. So a good idea is, it's not saying you shouldn't drink tea, but don't drink tea with your meal. Because, and in fact, wait an hour. Wait an hour after you've eaten and have a cup of tea an hour later, because it can interfere with the absorption. So what the FSA recommends is, what about having a glass of orange juice in the morning with your cereal? Because you're having your iron supplemented cereal, and you're partnering it with vitamin C, which means you're going to absorb that iron better. So, or just take an orange, have an orange, or a satsuma. Now, those aren't the only sources of vitamin C. We know that berries are high in vitamin C, so you could have strawberries in your cereal, or blueberries, or any other berries for that matter. So basically, and although apples are not the most high in vitamin C, they still have vitamin C. So any fruit that you're going to eat alongside your breakfast is going to help that iron absorption. And if you're having a wholemeal bread, again, your wholemeal toast will have an iron source, but you won't get a lot because you're only having a slice or two. But you could partner that with a piece of fruit or an orange juice. Okay, so also, because the body finds it hard to absorb it, they recommend that, especially if you're eating just plant-based iron sources, that you have a little bit all through the day. So they recommend that you maybe have your iron for your breakfast, then maybe at coffee time you might have some prunes or some apricots. At lunchtime, make sure you're adding vitamin C and iron together. And in the afternoon, maybe you could have a fig, or just 3 figs is actually high in iron. You don't even need many figs to get a high concentration of iron. So there are things that you can do. So little bits of iron all through the day. But remember, for those who are having to eat 15 milligrams, it's a lot of iron, because there is so little in the iron products. So make sure you're having fortified iron products, as well as trying to incorporate as many of these high sources, as well as topping up with your medium and your low. Okay, so I hope that's been helpful. We're going to now get ready for our practical, and we're going to be making wraps, because of course the wraps that I've got are wholemeal. In fact, these are half and half wraps, and we're going to be using these for our tofu. We're going to make tofu wraps with some interesting inclusions that you may not have thought of before. So I hope you'll join me. We're going to now wash hands and get ready for our practical work. See you in a bit. Bye.